Welcome this morning. If in fact you have been here for something like hundreds of hours in the last couple of weeks preparing for the performance of the Requiem, which is composed by our own music director and will be performed here this evening at 7:30 at night, which is why our space looks both lovely and different this morning. Welcome. If you have been here and will be here again to put in the love and the labor of this community, welcome. If it is your very first time inside these walls made sacred by all the work and the worry and the hope and the love that we put into it. This month, our worship theme is creativity. And we invite ourselves to consider the ways in which creativity lies at the very heart of what it means to be human. Reminded from our ancestors, even all the way back in the 17th century, those who predated what became Unitarianism, who predated what became our wacky, wonderful selves, who said the central requirement of a religious life was a sincere and teachable heart. Let us be people who remain teachable, still formed and forming on the growing edge of all that yet shall be. As we grow and change, we sing, we make music, we learn new notes for the hymn that is our shared lives. And I want to invite you to sing together. Bailey will be our song leader. We're so grateful Shwai is here to play with us. Come and go with me. The lyrics will be right up there.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bailey. My pronouns are she and they. We're going to be singing Come and Go With Me, which is a zipper song, which means that really very little changes from verse to verse. So don't fret too much if the screen is in a sort of funky place when we're so wonderfully rearranged with creativity this morning. Please rise and body your spirit to sing Come and Go With Me to that land. And please know that once we have reached the end of the fourth verse where we will have had singing in that land, we will come and go together one more time and sing the first verse again. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom. There'll be freedom in that land.
to take off her sweater. She's like, man, whew, whew. I would like to invite forward the amazing Natalie Shaw, our Director of Communications, who will help me to formally welcome all those who have joined as members of our community in recent months. Now, I will acknowledge, apparently I-270 is a disaster right now, and some of those new members may not have been able to get here. So those of you who are here, as we read your names, I want to invite you to go ahead and come forward.
The new members we will recognize today have varied backgrounds, and different religious journeys have brought them to River Road. By signing the membership book, they have all stated their desire to make RRUUC their spiritual home. They've all agreed to support River Road with their time, energy, and wisdom, and to add their strength to ours. Please take the time during social hour after service and in the days ahead to get to know them and develop personal connections. Again, as I call the new members' names, I invite you to come up to this stage. And the members we're recognizing today are Ellie Averow-Sturm, Matt Averow-Sturm, Jill Bailey and William Bailey, Rich Bergman, Juan Albin Betancourt, Matt Brunel, Benedict Carton, Liz Dean, Kara Gassaba, Reza Gassaba, Julia Gilbert, Danielle Gresham.
Just, yeah. Just, you look great. Why don't you come up too to keep him company? Look, we haven't called Nasreen's name yet, but she's gonna come up anyway, so you're not lonely. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Leisha Hansen, Alexa Horbachevsky, Nancy Koren, Ragav Kotfal, Stephanie Liotta Atkinson, Chris
Both
McCubbin,
Gorbachev. I don't think we read both your names. Come on.
Susan McDade, Michael Moyer, Peter Noon, Joe Prefontaine, Aaron Randall, Nisreen Schneider, Abby Schooling, William Siegel, Teresa Souza, Marilise Voss, Paul Wilkie, Gary Woodell, and Gwen Woodell.
Can we just... Oh, look. And there's William Bailey, who also joined. But, like, you don't have to run up here if you don't want to, William. And Horbachevsky's, I know both of you joined, too. Hello. Hello. The Reverend Victoria Weinstein reminds us that in this place, people have gathered for generations seeking higher purpose and deeper spiritual life than they can find alone. We are grateful today for each and every one of you, new members. We hope that you, as members of this congregation, will allow yourselves to know and to be known, to minister to us and make us more whole, even as we endeavor to minister to you. We are fellow travelers along an imperfect and sacred journey. And so in this ceremony of welcome, we extend not just our excitement for those who have joined us, although that excitement is real, but also our collective willingness to be transformed by all that they have to offer. Won't you join me in one collective round of applause? Welcome. With, as my predecessor in this pulpit, Reverend Dr. Bill Murray used to say, with warm hearts and open minds and a social conscience, we will walk together, moving over all the uncertain terrain as best we are able, wherever the path might lead. Welcome. Thank you. You may be seated. Children and youth, all of our teachers, our guides in the religious education program to head out on your way. And if you find yourself sitting far away and would like a seat, there might be a few more open here in a minute. We gather together in this place, just as we are. We gather together in this place, not as a curated, perfected, having it together version of ourselves, but with the full joys and concerns, the laughter and the tears that makes us who we are. You're invited at any point throughout today's service to come forward and light a candle for what lies in the silent sanctuary of your heart. There are a few I want to share for all of us today, starting with the fact that our just beloved River Road member and friend and leader, Gail Henry, has entered a new stage of her journey with cancer, entering hospice care just in this last week. Her family is all there. She and her wife, Sam, are among the most loving, hilarious, irreverent humans you will ever find, who yet carry deep reverence for what we try to do here. I hope you'll extend your love to Gail, though not too much of your consolation, for it is her heartfelt conviction that this life and everything in it has been nothing but gift. We also lift up today all of the graduates near and far, people transitioning from one life stage to another, all of the caps thrown in the air, all those who have labored and worked for whatever life stage they are moving on to and from, for the parents, for the kids, for the grandmas, for the chosen family, for every single one of us. And today we lift up, because we can do no other, all those families across this country, caring for and learning from and adapting alongside trans children and trans youth as laws are passed, even as we speak, making it a crime for those same children to get the health care that they need, to have the freedom and security to simply be. Families are actively leaving certain states in this nation right now simply for the desire for their children to be able to be safe and comfortable and at home. For all families, for all kids, for every single one of us. We lift up a prayer of solidarity and of grief. I want to invite us to take just a moment or two of silence today, holding the sorrow and the celebration, the great mush together mess of it all, right here before our hearts. As we begin to make space among us for our time of offering, I share words by Lee Kinvey. They wrote this as a chalice lighting for Unitarian Universalists. I share it as an invocation to our greater generosity, to all that we are becoming together. Lee writes, "This chalice is for the living. It is for the changing. It is for the becoming. This moment is for losing the script of your life, the chapters about who you are in other people's stories. This moment is for the lost GPS that was supposed to show you how to get where they expected you to go. This moment is for skipping the directions, coloring outside the lines, painting not by number but by silence, by wild abandon, with a brush you made yourself from the light deep inside. Startling, vivid, a new choice, a new voice that already knows you, finally, a true story." This month, we are so grateful that our Extending the Offering collection, this Sunday's generosity, goes entirely out of our doors to the work of Maryland's trans wellness organization, Trans Maryland. Trans Maryland is a multiracial, multigender, trans-led community power-building network dedicated to Maryland's trans community right here. And today, we're so grateful. After 25 years of LGBTQ plus activism, with so many more years no doubt ahead, that Lee Blinder, the executive director and co-founder of Trans Maryland, is here to join us to introduce the offering. They have served so richly and so deeply in these incredibly exhausting times. Thank you so much for being here, Lee.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really, really grateful to be here. And I think about these really challenging times, and I wonder who here is holding what it feels like maybe too much in relation to all this news about our trans community. Folks may want to raise their hands. So for all of you, I'm here today to talk a little bit about the work that I do, the work that we're doing collectively, and then also just to kind of put some words and thought and mind into that experience of holding and sitting with just these deeply challenging times for the trans community. So as Reverend Nancy mentioned, my name is Lee Blinder, and I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a very proud, openly transgender, non-binary person. I'm also queer. And this is my second time with you all. It's been a few years, so I'm really, really grateful to be back. And in these times right now, it is very challenging. We're sitting with a lot of really terrible news. And at the same time, in community, I'm watching us win huge wins, like the Trans Health Equity Act, which was passed just this past year in the legislative session and goes into effect on January 1st. And that's groundbreaking legislation for really throughout the whole country. It provides protections in Maryland Medicaid for transgender people. And that bill is like my personal baby. It came out of just many conversations with thousands of trans Marylanders all across the state. And we had those conversations at Pride festivals. We're gearing up to go to over 10 around the state again this year. And the lucky thing about not being funded is that we can choose exactly what our community needs. Nobody is dictating our funding. But that does mean that sometimes we need to come to our community more broadly and those who support us and ask for help and support. And that comes in two ways. One, through funding help, of course, and then the other one is also just through showing up And I like to deputize people as co-conspirators, in this process. Everything that we have done throughout our 5 years of work has been because we've had very strategically placed allies who have gone to a great extent to help us. Probably sometimes things that potentially, and in privacy, they could lose their jobs for, helping us to that extent. So we've had doors opened, we've had people get us in the room for a meeting, we've had people talk to their friends and their loved ones about the trans community. We've had people invite us to spaces like this where I can reach you and talk to you. And then every single one of you are going to talk to a room full of people probably in this next couple of weeks, if you were to think about all the conversations you have. And you're going to bring some of this message that I'm sharing with you today to your networks. So each one of you are going to reach, and these ripples are going to go out throughout the state, throughout the country, throughout the world potentially. And so when we think about each of our responsibilities, for myself, I'm a white transgender person. I don't live all of the trans experiences, so I'm always growing, always learning. And when I think about the folks who gave me the ability to walk down the street and not face arrest and not be worried if my face is going to be in the newspaper, I can't really lose my job for being trans because my job is being trans, but that's nice. But when we're thinking about, the people who paved the path for me, they often did not look like me. And our Black trans siblings are also experiencing not actually often a new experience of targeting through this news and this legislation that's going on throughout the country. Many of my siblings, can't access affirming employment, housing. And so when we're thinking about supporting folks who are coming here, my ask is also to support the folks who are not visible here, who have never had access, who don't have housing, who don't have healthcare access. We see a lot of folks before they even sign up for healthcare. And a lot of folks are still doing what's called like street hormones, where you're getting hormones from a friend or not through a provider or from the internet. And so part of my job is to bring my siblings' experience into rooms like these, to talk to folks and say, hey, who can afford to move? Who can afford to move their family? And then who is here in Maryland without housing, without healthcare, without a job? And so part of our work is serving the communities who are here. And we also do need help because we're getting, I can only say, an astronomical number of requests for help. Either information, people want resources. An email in my inbox last week was folks who were saying, hi, the place I can afford to live is Cumberland. How affirming is it for my community there? And there's some amazing organizing going on in Cumberland right now, I will say. That fills me with a lot of joy because we've been going to Pride festivals out in Cumberland and to support group meetings, et cetera, for a few years now. And there's just really exciting work, which, again, it's so wonderful to hear. But again, the vibe in Cumberland is, not necessarily as affirming as we would like it to be. And we're going to see a lot of really interesting things happen in these next few years. If we have a lot of movement of people, places like Cumberland might be a lot more queer and trans in the next couple of years. Because if that's where folks can afford to live, that's where they will. But when we think about what these next steps are and kind of how to navigate our own, I always talk to the trans people in the room, whether I know they're there or not, because I know y'all are here, and the folks who have a trans loved one intimately in their immediate network. And then, of course, the folks who are looking to show up for trans people. But for my community and those who are intimately connected to trans people, I want to talk about that piece of how we take care of ourselves in this time and connecting in through our elders. I would not be able to get out of bed every day if I didn't make that time and effort to look through and find our elders who've been in this struggle for many years. And they don't have to have been in trans work. They can have been in any social justice movement that one expects to do for the rest of their life, right? Where we're not going to accomplish our goal in a small amount of time. And so for me, connecting in through those elders can look like a variety of things. It can look like a book. One of my main elders is Leslie Feinberg, right? I'm going to read Stone Butch Blues and find out, like, hey, how is Leslie navigating these things? I also might turn to someone like Miss Major Griffin Gracie, an Amazon complicated company, but her video and documentary about her life called Major with an exclamation mark is an awesome movie. So I suggest to check out those resources, find out ways in which you can pour into yourself, and then be here through this struggle, because we're going to be in for the long haul. And there's a lot of joy and a lot of power that comes through that movement and through this work and educating people in this moment. I have a room full of people to listen to me, and I'm so grateful for that. And that is a way that we can also take control of our own narrative. So thank you so much for the privilege of being here today and for telling you a little bit about my work and about Trans Maryland. And please be good to yourself and take care. Thank you.
I want to let you know that you can find out more about Trans Maryland. You can have some deeper conversation with Lee at coffee hour, and indeed, you can give in a great many ways for this work that we share. There's an offering box in the back. Baskets will come around. You can give literally at any point through this entire month to Trans Maryland. Please do so early and often and as much as you can. The work is there, and the work is sacred. We speak today of potters and of clay, of creativity and self-creativity. We speak of the hard necessity of making all things new. In the late 16th century, the Jewish people in the ghettos of Eastern Europe did not need to listen hard for the rumblings and the rumors of war. Pogroms against their people swept through the cities again and again, leaving teachers, rabbis, and leaders scrambling to find new ways to resist all the dehumanizing forces of a dangerous world. So it was. They say that in the ghetto of Prague, the old story tells us that a rabbi rose up in the blanket of night and used all of his creative power to resist. Armed with nothing more than magical words and the incantations that only the most deeply learned could understand, the rabbi birthed something new and half-formed into the world. Rabbi Judah Lo ben Bezalel, it was said, was an expert on Kabbalah, which some of you will know merely as a thing that Madonna dabbled in the early 2000s, and some of you will know as the deepest manifestation of the mystical truths inherent within the people of the Jewish faith. A sort of mystical code that writes the binary of the universe itself. On that cold night so long ago in Prague, it is said that Rabbi Lo knelt in the clay of the Vltava River and used his own hands to shape this rough-edged figure of a towering giant man out of the primordial clay and silt. This creature the rabbi made would be called by history a golem. Neither the first nor the last of them, perhaps the most famous and most powerful of these mystical beings of the Hebrew people, unable to think for itself, stronger, quicker than humans, designed to be faithful above all else to the mandates of its creator. The golem, the old stories say, it runs the code that the mystics inscribe upon its great forehead. In this case, Rabbi Lo inscribed upon its head the single word emet, which means truth. Rabbi Lo's golem was designed to be a useful tool for a people in great need, a bodyguard to the oppressed in the worst of times, a source of labor and efficiency when the people needed it most at best. It did work that it would have taken the people 10 times as long to do, hauling boulders up mountains, building walls to protect them from all who would come. Eventually, however, it is said that the golem of Prague, just as all simulacrums of life before and after it in every tale, it is said that the golem of Prague slipped bit by bit from the control of its creator. It became a threat to those it was born to serve. It ran the code perhaps too effectively without the balm of humanity to temper its power. And it is said that the wisdom of the teacher took its final form when Rabbi Lo swiped his hand across the clay inscription on the golem's forehead, turning emet, E-M-E-T, truth, with that single line of code altered just a bit. The rabbi wiped away the E, leaving simply met, the Hebrew word for death. Some say the golem, with the code so altered, sank down into the clay from which it arose. Others, knowing that the people would once again be in great need of a powerful, if uncontrollable, protector, say that the golem rests even still somewhere in the dusty attic of Prague's oldest synagogue, waiting for the time when the people need it most to run the code of its mighty creation once again. In Jewish literature and art, golems are powerful mythological and spiritual figures. They tend to arise in the stories, always at the moment when the Jewish people find themselves in the times of greatest crisis. To many, the golem is a source of Jewish resistance. The successive waves of anti-Semitic violence of this world met with a creature so powerful it could carry the intentions of its creators farther than those creators themselves. It is a story of creative power and of what it means for creative things to have or not have a soul. A spark of the divine that animates and tempers. It is a story of identity, not just that of the creative being, but of the creators themselves, who reach out as the potter with agency into a clay that is supposedly inert and end up making something that changes them both, potter and clay, before the story finds its close. You know perhaps that the Hebrew and the Christian scriptures are rich with references to this foundational metaphor of a potter and the clay. Most notably, the righteous indignation of the prophet Jeremiah, who basically warns an unholy people who are acting up and causing problems that anything the potter makes, the potter can destroy. Those words of Jeremiah were reformed centuries ago as a poem in the traditional Rosh Hashanah prayer book, which says, as clay in the hand of the potter who thickens or thins it at will, we are in your hands, O God of love. Recall your covenant, show us your mercy. The traditional Western theology of it all is clear. What the potter has done, the potter can undo. What God creates, God can uncreate, and all of God's created beings, namely us, exist by nature of the mercy shown by that powerful maker of things. God is the potter. We are the clay. And yet the golem gives evidence of another ancient theology. The next step holds quite simply that since we are made in the image of God, we, human beings, can also create and can uncreate. We can exercise a parallel generative and destructive authority over the whole world around us. Traditional Western theology tells us God is the potter, we are the clay. Emergent theology tells us we are the potters. The whole world is the clay. J.R.R. Tolkien famously held this perspective. He said that we're all creators of whole new worlds. And didn't Tolkien do that? He said, we are created by the holy, and in and of ourselves are sub-creators. Just as God creates this whole mess, we imagine new realities every day. Just as God holds this world in the palm of God's own hand, so do we hold these stories we tell and the shaping power of them, these policies we pass and the impact of them on our lives, these magical worlds we dream up, this music we compose as creative people. Tolkien believed he was not just a storyteller, but a builder of worlds, and that we all do the same. I've always loved him for that. And I wondered if we as potters take our role as creators seriously enough for the great risk and the great wonder that creation entails. Now, I'm going to be nerdy for just a minute to say that in 20th century liberal theology, we went a few steps further than C.S. Lewis. The idea behind something called process theology is that the holy generative force, it exists not just in God or from God or in people or from people, but in the creative interchange of all things. Holiness exists at the meeting points, not in the creative agency of one force over another, but in the ways in which we come together, and in the coming together dare to make something new. We are the potters and we are the clay, and we are reshaping one another and being shaped by one another all the time. The great philosopher of liberal religion, Henry Nelson Wyman, even taught that it's this moment of creative interchange, when two people or multiple forces come together to create something absolutely new that can be understood as God, God's self, God is in the interchange. God is in the creativity. God is in the emergence of something new, not the powerful force of will of one over another, but in the spaces where we come together. When we, the clay, become, if only for a moment, the potter as well, and simultaneously, in such overlapping ways, you cannot tell who is the creator and who the created. We are made for creative transformation as a bird is made for flight, said Wyman. It is in our capacity to create and be created by each other that we become fully human. Now, within progressive Judaism, some have been busy taking a long, hard look at the theology written into the Rosh Hashanah texts, the agency of the people across ages to work creative magic into the clay of an embattled history. Within the scientific world, people of all religions and no religion at all are right now, right this minute, bending themselves down into the primordial mud and muck of the digital world to write code for entities that run algorithms designed ostensibly, often tangibly, to be greater and larger than us and to make our own lives easier. We are, some say right now, this minute, living in the era of second contact with artificial intelligence. First contact, of course, happened a few decades ago when Facebook jumped out of Harvard's dorm rooms and led the way in social media revolution. Suddenly, this thing that we had created, it worked through the algorithm we wrote for it to exercise a profound creative force back upon us. We, people, we are not what we were when we first flipped that switch. What we created has slipped from our control. What we created has a formative power on us. And the code on which it runs is not emet or truth. The code on which it runs is profit. In this moment right now, just this spring, another switch flipped to what some scientists and thinkers have called humanity's second contact with these mighty and uncontrollable forces of our own creation. With the launching of artificial intelligence programs that work on the foundation of our own language, programmers have designed AI to crawl across the internet, hoover up everything we ourselves say, the stories we tell, the art we create, the music we make, how we speak of ourselves, only to deliver the sum total of the linguistic creation of the human species back out to us. To serve it up at a moment's notice, we have trained the machine on the sum total of our ingenuity, our creativity. They are designed to suck up and devour and deliver back out every thought we have ever had before. Bigger than us, stronger than us, capable of doing astonishing things. This generation of artificial intelligence can help us understand animal communication. It can actually regenerate from online data the voice of a person with a crushed trachea, delivering back to tearful amazement an encounter that makes us know what we lost might be found again. It moves and has its being on our command. And yet, as the scientists Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin have said, this emerging group of large language model artificial intelligence can best be classed as golem-class AI, created with powerful intent, but acting in deeply unpredictable ways to move and mold the very substance of its creator. It feels like a conversation. It feels like a creative interchange. It feels like innovation beyond our wildest imaginings, and I think perhaps it is, but in fact, the interface between people and chatbots is the exact opposite of creation. When human beings interact right now with AI, what we are interacting with is the sum total of every single thing we ourselves have already said. It is feeding ourselves back to ourselves in an endless loop in this way. And for all of its world-changing power, the next generation of artificial intelligence is not in fact thinking, but delivering up on a silver platter every thought, every bias, every story, every cliche we already invented. And in so doing, this thing we have formed in the primordial digital clay, it is teaching us that the only stories we need to tell are the stories we've already told. You see, it's creating us in our own image. And those images are not always the version of ourselves we want to be. AI is not making us dumber. It is perhaps making us more boring, or at least more of what we have always been before, even in spite of every extraordinary, innovative power that went into its creation. I said before that golems arise in Jewish literature in times of crisis, a powerful symbol of what the human people can create to resist, to advance, to protest. They move independent of their creators in the human world, doing work that cannot be done alone. They act upon the singular mandate of their code, and until and unless that code is changed from animation to system shutdown, from action to dormancy. And the thing about Rabbi Lowe, all the way back in the 16th century in the ghetto of Prague, was that he knew when to shut it down. And perhaps, if the stories are to be understood, when to power it back up, waiting there in the attic of the ancient places for when people might need it most. You know, this week I read a UU sermon composed by ChatGPT. And I'm here to tell you, I have read worse. I am pretty sure I have preached worse. And yet, that thing was chock full of the old preacherly chestnuts one of my mentors used to call the lettuce and mayo prayers. Let us find hope in our days. May you be full of courage. Which is to say, it was pretty good, though awfully cliche. It was a simulacrum of the middle of the road. That thing wouldn't hurt us. It wouldn't exactly help us either. I don't want to be the lettuce and mayo version of myself. Nor perhaps do you. In whatever parallel applies to what you care about most in this world, I do not want the singular code of my own programming to be for profit. But I believe that the holy, such as it is, still exists in the weird, wonderful moments when we break the old constructions of what we have thought before, said before, done before, composed before, imagined before, and actually create some new and different understandings of each other in the world. If indeed we are made for creative interchange as a bird is made for flight, then we are also made for the weirdness and the wisdom that interrupts the code. We are made for the life that arises when the golem we have formed to do what we cannot do for ourselves lies dormant for a time in the sacred places. And we, the potters and the clay, the creators and the created, stride out into the waiting world, still capable of thinking a whole new thought.
Holy macaroni, Nancy, you rocked it. I've got a couple of creative announcements for you this morning. The Requiem is tonight at 7:30. Here a chorus of over 80 singers and a chamber orchestra bring this beautiful work to life as they prepare for a performance at Carnegie Hall on Memorial Day. Requiem used texts from the 19th and 20th century poets and traverses the time before a person passes through the experience of those still alive, grief and anger, reconciliation and love, both in the sanctuary and live streamed on our YouTube channel. We are very excited to have two major opportunities to deepen our congregational ties between friends old and new, while all having a lot of fun doing it. First is today is the last day we are accepting donations for your June services auction, which brings us together by showing and sharing our skills and our interests while raising money for River Road at the very same time. If you are wondering what you could donate to expand the offerings of this wonderful event, please stop by the info table in the fellowship hall after the service. And second, planning is already underway for the RRUUC Bazaar, which will be held on the 4th of November. This is an all-hands-on-deck affair where all of our energy and talents commingle to transfer our building and our spirits as we work and we laugh together. Please stop by the info table here in the lounge after the service. Religious education is recruiting teachers and helpers for the next year. Come work with our awesome children and youth. We need people in all class levels. Talk to Beth or Laura after the service at coffee hour, or send them an email. We are now using the fellowship hall, which is right down there. For coffee hour, we can also now hold the RRUUC members and friends art show there. This show is open to all members and friends of RRUUC and will be held from Sunday, June 18th through Sunday, September 10th. Each artist can submit up to 2 pieces of art, and every effort will be made to accept both pieces. At least one will definitely be put in the show. Contact Catherine Hubley with the Fine Arts Committee for more info. And thank you.
Y'all, with Cliff not here, I've been trusted with the singing bowl, so wish me luck again. And now, may the truths that make us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies guide us and those we love and those we do not love forward together till the day spring breaks and all the shadows flee away. Amen. We are so grateful today, of course, for Dave and Marshall Leonard working so hard on both the Requiem and here. We're grateful for Lee Blender's labor and words and love. For the fact that I think Schwei was in traffic for, an hour and a half trying to get here, we thank you. Our service is ended. Let's see if I can do this thing.